thing at 2 o'clock I had to go to that I hope no one ever has to go through. And when I got back in the office, the bailiffs actually stuck their head in and said that the jurors planning on working till 5 o'clock, I wanted to bring them out and get no information about where they are, but just to tell them that folks in the building start getting nervous at this time, and the captains come up to me about people staying late and securing the building and whether anyone wants to come back tomorrow and those sorts of things. So I'm going to talk to them about that and ask them to give us some idea. I want them to stay in here and work as long as they're going to work. And I'll stay with them as long as they need to. I have not talked to them about the alternates wanting to be called in if they have a verdict, and that from the moment they tell us they have a verdict, when they receive one, that it will be a minimum of 30 minutes before we have it, because I know y'all have family members that are going to want to be here, other folks that have worked on the case. I expect the DA's office is going to reach out to some of the deputies. I believe the sheriff wants to be here. So it's going to be 30 to 45 minutes before we gather everybody here. So if they don't believe they're going to have a verdict this afternoon and they want to work till 5 o'clock, I may tell them that I'm going to cut everybody loose at 4 and they can stay in here and keep working, kind of like we've been doing, and then find out whether they want to come back tomorrow, which I'm going to discourage. But if they want to, that's what I'll do. And then if not, have them report back on Monday. But I'm going to kind of give them that kind of guidance and see what they are doing. I think you have a conflict in the morning or something. Someone told me you had something doing. But
so Judge,
I have a conflict for today, but I have multiple conflicts for today, but we are here. I'm going to...
You're not going to encourage them to keep working just tonight until they reach a decision?
Correct. I'm going to let them make that decision. I will stay here with them as late as they want to.
And we will too, Judge.
But they have indicated that they want to break around 5. I want them to tell me that officially. And if they do, I'm going to tell them if they don't have anything by 4, I'm going to cut everyone else loose for the day, and they are free to stay here and continue to work. Because, anyway, if that makes, to the extent that that makes sense. All right? Okay, go ahead and bring them in. And if they have any other requests, I would like to go ahead and handle those today, if they do. It must be much warmer in the jury room than it is in the courtroom. All right, ladies and gentlemen, I just wanted to chat with you a little bit about your deliberations. I am not in any way trying to rush you. I want y'all to take as much time as y'all need on this case. What I want to talk to y'all about is bailiffs came back and told me that y'all wanted to work till about 5 o'clock, which is fine. But I want to talk to you before that to update you on a couple things I don't think we've talked about since I dismissed y'all to the jury room Wednesday. First, when I spoke with the alternate jurors and dismissed them They are still on call. They all want to be here for the verdict, understandably so. They've invested 4 weeks of their time, so they want to be here when y'all reach a verdict. There are numerous other interested parties, witnesses, family members who also all want to be here when a verdict is reached. Some of them are on site and some of them are off site. It will take no less than 30 minutes up to 45 minutes for us to get everyone here for the verdict. So I want y'all to understand that there will be a delay once y'all reach a verdict and the reasons for it. So that's the first thing. The second thing is this is about the time of day and week where folks in the building start getting nervous. Not because of y'all, but because they have to start getting in people to keep the building open. People think I have a lot of control. I have very little control. I have significant powers of persuasion, but I have to get permission from court staff to keep the building open. I have to let the people at the county commissioner's office to let them know that we're going to keep the building open. We have to talk to the person who regulates the thermostat to either keep it on or off or turn it down or whatever. So I want y'all to continue to work here this afternoon and this evening as long as you want to. I would like to, at some point, to be able to tell court staff whether we need to stay, they need to have additional personnel on call to come in and keep the building open and notify anybody else that may happen, and whether or not, so I want y'all to kind of assess for yourselves whether y'all are close or not, whether y'all want to continue to work throughout the afternoon, whether y'all want to break around 5 o'clock, whether y'all want to keep going till about 6 o'clock or later. Again, whenever, I'll be here till 2:30 if that's what you want. All right, the lawyers will also do the same. They are not in a rush to leave. They want y'all to take as much time as you want. So I'm just letting you know, you tell us what you're going to do, we will make appropriate action. If y'all do not believe that you're close to reaching a verdict today, but you want to stay and work till 5 or 6 or 7, that is perfectly fine, kind of like last night. I would tell them, we'll come back on Monday if y'all reach a verdict tonight or tomorrow. So that would be the other thing, is I have kept the building open on Saturday. I've had many juries come back on Saturday morning and deliberate. I'm not going to encourage that, but I will go along with that if that's in fact what you want to do. When we've had juries come back on Saturday, a lot of times they want to come back at 10 and work from 10 to 2 and then take the rest of the afternoon off. Again, that is up to you, but what I would like for y'all to do is kind of go back, talk among yourselves, and give me some report to the best that you can, what y'all would like to do for the rest of today, whether y'all anticipate maybe getting a verdict tonight, whether you do not anticipate getting a verdict tonight, whether you want to come back tomorrow if you're going to continue to work, or whether you want to come back on Monday. Is that somewhat clear? All right, if y'all could do that, and y'all can just give me a report in writing to the bailiff, and then I'll inform the lawyers. If y'all want to continue to deliberate, do not believe that y'all would get a verdict today, I would probably tell the lawyers and the family that they could be excused around 4 o'clock. If there's any questions or evidence that y'all want to review today, let us know in the next 30 minutes, and then we will do that, and then we will excuse whoever for the day, okay? So if y'all would do that and then give me a report back, I'd appreciate it. Thank you. All right, any issues with any of that? All right, we'll hang loose until we get some report from them, and then I'll update y'all, and I'll give y'all some suggested course of action.
Do you want us to hang loose here, and you'll just come back and tell us, or you want Tracy to text us?
I'll bring y'all back in.
Okay, then I'll just
Or I'll,
just call them out.
I mean, I know the folks in the back are gonna wanna know too, cause they have the watch party going on online. Watch party.
Who has? Just people?
Somebody's hosting a verdict watch, something. I'm quite astounded, actually. It's my understanding y'all want to go ahead and break for the day and resume deliberations on Monday at 9 o'clock. Is that correct? And that's perfectly fine. I'm sure y'all are tired. I know I am. I will tell y'all, just similarly as I was telling you before I dismissed y'all about gathering folks up, that's going to be an issue. I have an additional issue next week in that I have court scheduled every day for an entire day for the entire week. That's not your problem and not your concern, and it's not the first time I'll be juggling a jury and other matters. It will just take time for me to, because I don't think we have a free courtroom for me to use for my other calendar. So it'll be me sending whoever's in the courtroom out and then bringing whoever needs to be here for whatever we're taking up with y'all in. But that should not, don't let that impact anything y'all are doing other than what I've told you about. If you have multiple questions, multiple things you want to review, do that. It'll take somewhere around 30 minutes for us to get everybody back in here to do those things. So continue to work while you're doing that, or it's a good time for y'all to take a break, go get coffee, stretch your legs, whatever. It is, again, critical, and this is probably the most dangerous moment, especially in a case of this nature in terms of somebody communicating and reaching out to you. We have obscured your information so nobody knows outside who you are. My bigger concern are the people who know you, who are part of your inner circle that knows that y'all are in this case. Do not let them talk to you about the case at all. To the extent you can stay home and sleep and watch college football tomorrow, don't have my cup. But to the extent y'all can do that and stay away and out of public eye, that would be fantastic. If something happens, remove yourself from the situation immediately. Let the bailiffs know first thing, and we will talk to you and address it first thing. As long as you immediately remove yourself from the situation, no one says anything of significance to you, that's fine, and I know that you're not going to intentionally do that. But, again, be especially careful if you use social media. Be very careful if you're on it over the weekend. If you like to review news, this has been picked up by local news, been picked up by Atlanta station news, and it's been picked up by various national news media organizations, including the folks that are in the room in the back. So just be especially careful. Don't talk to anyone about the case. Look up anything about the case. Look up anything about the law. I'm not going to say, like I said, if you're watching Law and Order or something like that, that's fine. Just remember that what they're talking about may or may not have anything to do with the law in Georgia or how things work here. Y'all are free to go back and deliberate as long as you want to for the rest of the day, or be dismissed for the end of the day. I'm not going to give you any additional instructions or make you come back in here. Any questions, comments, concerns about anything from y'all? All right. Y'all can be excused. Have a good weekend. Go Dogs. All right, and with that, y'all can just be on call starting at 9:30, like we have done the last couple of days, and I'll let you know when we know anything. All right? And if anyone wants to file Rule 22s for my non-jury civil calendar on Monday, y'all are welcome to.
Alrighty, everybody, I'm back. And, well, it looks like court's done for the weekend. Who would have thought that? I thought they would have, oops, hold on. I got to turn myself off in the background here. Guys, I had my phone on earlier that I was listening to everything and didn't realize I had not turned it off, so I was hearing myself. But judges send it, or it looks like the jury's going to go home today. With the feed already being off, he offered to send them home at 4. They opted to do that. So what does that tell us about their deliberations? Number one, it tells us they are obviously far from a verdict. It tells us they're divided. It tells us that they're tired. It tells us that they want to take a few days to think about this among themselves because they're probably not getting along great back there, and they want a break. So that's very interesting. I can tell you right now where we're at in deliberations. As I said, today is Friday. The deliberations began, what was it, Wednesday? And we had 2 hours of deliberations on Wednesday, about 8 hours of deliberations yesterday. So we're probably at about, 18, almost going on 16, 17, 18 hours. We are definitely well beyond the expected time of deliberations. I thought for certain there'd be a verdict today. There hasn't been one. We got questions about the statute, how to understand the law, because I think they're struggling back there with wanting to make sure that they fully understand what the law says, what it doesn't say. Because I think the only reason why I would think they're doing that is because of the fact that they believe that that she's involved in some way, and they're trying to figure out if whatever level of involvement some of them think she's involved with, does it fit any of those crimes? So, but I think, look, we're at a point right now where it would be considered favorable to the defense when you have an extended deliberation. It's always favorable to the defense the longer a jury goes, because that means that the jury's struggling and there's doubt. So, as you know, earlier we were talking, we were leading things up and tightening the noose around Scott's neck, in the sense that we were showing that his friend does not provide him an alibi. He's got a wide open gap in the afternoon of when he could have returned during the time that the fire would have been set. And remember, for those of you who say Rusty's phone call is still significant because she said he's on the burn pile, didn't say she lit it on fire. Well, somebody lit that burn pile on fire. And if it wasn't Melody, then it had to be Scott. And the problem is at that point, if she's not the one lighting them on fire, if Scott's involved in this thing, if there's somebody she has help, then we have a second person. And we don't know what the circumstances of how Gary Farris died. We don't know if she became aware of it and chose not to say anything. We don't know if she caused the death. We know the death couldn't have happened inside the house. We know that there's no evidence anywhere on the property that was searched, at least that stands out, that says this is where it happened. We know there's a barn where Scott lived, where 38 caliber weapon or bullets are, that wasn't searched, wasn't processed. And we know that is the more, in my opinion, the likely place where this went down by process of elimination. If you search everywhere else and you have one area that's not searched, now if everywhere had been searched, we just say, well, somebody must have done a good job cleaning it up, or the rain came in and cleaned it up near the burn pile. But because of faulty police work, because the police didn't do their job, they did not eliminate all doubt. So the question is, now, Mary Conn, you said no, Gary had the fire going? Okay. So was Gary alive on the afternoon of the 4th, Mary? Because the forensic anthropologist, go back and watch, I played the testimony. The forensic anthropologist, fire expert, said that it was that the burning of the body was a one-time fire, and that fire to which he was burned up in had to have started no later than 1:09 p.m. on the day of July 4th. If you're going to go and believe that he was shot at the burn pile after the fire started, then you have exonerated Melody Farris as being the person that shot him. Give me one moment. Thank you. Then that's fine. We'll go there. So everybody that wants to say he was shot at the burn pile, great, say that. But understand what you're saying. You're saying that fire then, the fire that burned his body up, if that's how he gets on the burn pile, doesn't start until 1:09 p.m. or later. You have exonerated Melody Farris as being the shooter. So everybody that wants to go out and do that, everyone that's saying that in all the chats all over the internet right now. Now, again, I don't know why the defense didn't pound this home. I don't know why they didn't take that and say that witness is absolutely the witness because, of course, they're not present in these chats and no one is saying that Melody shot him at the burn pile. And perhaps that's why the state wasn't willing to go there. The state has to put this crime inside the house because they know that if they were to have come with that theory, if they were to come with that theory, that's where this could go. All right, apologize, guys, for the background noise. I did not realize I have my things on, and my son had come and put his iPad behind where I'm at, and I was not hearing it. It was at low levels, but when I muted, I heard him, and he likes to do that. Anyways, let me know if it comes back on. So that is a big problem. I don't think I think it's just flying right over everyone's head, the significance of this forensic anthropologist. I think it's a crime that the defense didn't make that a hallmark part of their closing because it didn't pound this thing home. It didn't turn that witness into their favor because that witness said it. We watched it. You heard it. It was played earlier today. Go back and watch it. I have it on video. When it was aired, but go back. So you can watch. I don't know if it's Dr. Pope or anthropologist Pope or what she would call herself, but she says there's no way that fire would have started from, no problem, Kimberly, no problem. That there's no way that the fire could have started before 1:09 p.m., 24 hours before. It could have started a little earlier. It could have burned 16 hours, but it was not burning longer than 24 hours. Why did the investigators mention? Well, because I guess the citronella smell was supposed to be to cover up the to cover up the smell of the body. So I think maybe perhaps that was to explain why Scott or other people wouldn't have smelled a burning body. Didn't check the fire because there wasn't a fire on the third. That's what we proved. And if there was a fire on the third, it was not the fire that burned up Gary. Because again, you've got to go back to that forensic anthropologist expert and you got to look at it and you got to say, okay, what did she say? What she said that was key here is that if there was a fire, it wasn't that fire because this was a one burn fire. In other words, that body was burned one time and it was burned in the fire that was still burning, that was still present. So when that body made it on the fire, it would have been when it started no earlier than 1:09 p.m. on the 4th, which again, step into that. Go ahead and tell me how she got the body to the burn pile. Because if you tell me he was there, I'm going to tell you she wasn't there. And that's what the evidence shows. And you just exonerated her. You've just exonerated her. And you've just implicated the only person who doesn't have an individual on earth who could see him during the time that fire had to start. And that would be Scott Farris. And again, investigators had this evidence. Why have they not questioned him on it? The defense did, although the defense put this thing and said, you shot him in the barn on the night of the 3rd, which doesn't make any sense because they already, or maybe it was, Well, Mary S. Hart, the evening the grandchildren went into the hot tub, that was the 4th. The burn pile, more likely than not, had already been ignited, had already started. Here's when it happened. This is the most logical time that it happened. It was burning. That burn pile was still burning because neighbors smelled it. On the early evening, they were smelling the burn pile burning. And they thought at first it was, the lady had said, I set him down and said, go over here. And he said, no, it has to be coming over here. And that was the direction of Farris property. And that was on the 4th. And in fact, when I heard that testimony, I was like, oh, she's a witness. I didn't realize the significance of any of this until I got to the end and started piecing it all together. But then I heard that and I said, wait a minute. So the burn pile was burning continuously for 48 hours and somebody had to be on that fire for 48 hours. Turns out it wasn't clicking because none of it was making sense with the way the state and everybody was saying this happened. They're saying something that couldn't have happened. They're saying that this fire starts on the 3rd, but they don't answer why their own expert says it couldn't have. The defense at least brought it up, but they didn't bring it up as one of their fertilizer bags. I don't know why they didn't. That is the most compelling piece of evidence. That is the piece of evidence that blows this case wide open. Because, first of all, it destroys Rusty's statement. It shows you what Rusty's statement is. And then when you look at the facts surrounding Rusty's statement, the way it came out, the way he was essentially, for all practical purposes, intimidated into making it. It's bad police work. I guarantee you put an expert on there for interrogations and the way they did it, they'd say that was terrible. And then the fact that Rusty gave nothing corroborates what Rusty said. The experts don't corroborate what Rusty said. Okay? No one does. And then Rusty goes and tries to confuse Melody by, remember the date of the 3rd? And she doesn't remember whether it was the 3rd, the 4th, the 5th. Hell, we saw that earlier today. I played that when the business partner was on there. He didn't know he was confused. He thought the 5th, he thought the Friday was the 5th. He said, when I'm looking at the calendar, I'm realizing where everything's at. So you have that, but it blows that up. And then it blows up the fact that if you believe that the way she got him on the burn pile was she shot him at the burn pile and the fire hadn't started yet. And that means Gary would have had to have been alive at 1 p.m. Well, how do you explain that? Because he wasn't on a CPAP machine, but we all know the data wasn't actually read by the correct program that would read the data. They're just going off of what's on the screen, which I don't discount that that's not accurate of when it was last used, but the data wasn't read. And I know from being a CPAP user myself that it connects via Wi-Fi and everything else. So sometimes data doesn't transfer. Sometimes, there's been times that I've had full days just not there. So the CPAP is not the greatest, most reliable way to say when he died or not. And then you go, well, Gary's phone's moving all over the property. Well, it's moving all over the property until close to when the burn pile starts. And then Melody leaves. And then you have the call between Melody and Scott, which isn't really explained why they talked to each other at around 12. I always thought that was the switching of the shift when we thought we had a continuous burn pile from late at night, but we find out we didn't. We found out it wasn't forensically possible that was going on at that time. And then we find out that the burn pile, the fire that started, that burned up Gary's body, couldn't have started prior to 1 o'clock. That when it got roaring, it was at least 1 o'clock or later, sometime in the afternoon on the 4th. Now we find out, well, Mary S. Art, I will not agree that that's weird, because I will tell you, when my father passed, it took us 6 months to get his autopsy results. Now, a year might seem, but in these homicide-like cases, they get backed up, and even in regular cases. So that's not necessarily unusual, because I was told that sometimes, when I was talking to the medical examiner's office when my father passed away, because he was passed away alone, it required an autopsy. And they said that that could take anywhere from 6 to 18 months. And they told me that in some cases where it's where there's an unknown stuff about the death, it could take up to 2 years. So that's still in the wheelhouse, even though it does seem kind of long. The medical examiner's office in a lot of states are underfunded, and there's toxicology reports that have to come back. And then in this case, there's a lot that goes into it because there's only 35 pounds of remains left. So there was a lot they had to do to analyze it and figure it all out. So that I'm not necessarily concerned about the length of the autopsy. But like I said, what I'm concerned with is this timeline that we have now and when things started and when witnesses said they saw a burn fire. No one smelled a burn fire on the 3rd. The only person that puts a burn fire on the 3rd is Scott. And then Melody suspiciously does, but it's also very possible she could have had the nights confused. But if you play back those statements, because the investigators are saying, you have this roaring burn fire outside or burn pile out there. And it turns out that she couldn't have. Forensically, she couldn't have. And everybody just accepted it. And we heard it. We heard it. Now, what I'm playing back is because there was a question earlier, which was, did they cover Scott's geofencing location on the afternoon of the 4th? And that's what we're going to listen to, and it'll be a good opportunity to listen to one more time where the whole family was on the night of the 3rd into the 4th. And yes, there are some suspicious things. There are credit cards being used. There are things that indicate something was going on the night of the 3rd. I don't dispute that. But it's also possible. Pay attention to one of the text messages that's shown, which seems to indicate that the card she used at 12:30 to reload the Straight Talk might have been already loaded on the account. I don't know. But yes, there are some weird things. There is some stuff that she was talking. It's also possible that the outlier here that caused those conversations might have been completely unrelated to Gary's death, even though it happened at the same time. And it might have been due to the granddaughter coming the next day and her knowing that and her being up preparing the room because there have been people staying there the previous weekend and she wanted to get the house ready. So she was vacuuming and doing all the things she told investigators. Anyways, let's take a listen here.
Sorry, can you move the mic?
And it lasted 1 minute and 5 seconds in duration.
And that's on her personal cell phone, the one that she communicates with family on.
Correct.
And that is where the phone's location is when that call is taken from
Yes.
Scott?
Yes.
Okay. That's Scott's phone number
Correct.
in this pink section here?
Yes.
Okay. All right, at 11:28, what are we looking at there?
This is a phone call from Melody to Rusty on the 1987 phone, and it lasts 4 minutes and 58 seconds.
Okay, and that's about 40 minutes after she talks to Scott, right? Okay, then at 11:30, what do we have there?
This is a phone call from Scott to Melody at 11:30 p.m. And no duration.
No duration. What does that typically mean?
The phone call did not connect.
Kathy, that wasn't until the next day at around, I believe it was around, you're going to see it here, but I believe it was around noon on the 4th. It was when the phone stopped connecting or didn't have any further, or maybe, no, actually it was the evening of the 4th. I apologize. It's the evening of the 4th, and then it was pinging, as you see, the geolocation of it was right near in the area it would have been found in the house. So, but I think it was like 6 o'clock in the evening, it went off, which is what she explains. That means it either lost battery, went on airplane mode, but it lost contact with the towers.
And what are we looking at here down in the bottom, this map?
Again, this is the location of Scott Farris's telephone during that attempted call at 11:30 p.m.
And that's within, and the Purcell Lane is within that tower.
That's correct.
So at 10:52, the phone's location is in the pink up there, and then by 11:30, it appears he's in the area of the home.
That's correct.
Okay. And what is this slide?
This is a call at 11:34 p.m. Melody to Scott, and it lasts 4 minutes and 10 seconds.
And that below is the phone, Scott's phone's location, which the home appears to be within that location.
Correct.
Okay. All right. Let's start at the bottom here. Well, hang on. Let's go back. So this is about 10 minutes later. What's this bottom call right here?
This is a phone call at 11:45 p.m. on July 3rd. This is Melody calling Rusty, and it lasts 1 hour, 14 minutes, and 5 seconds.
At 11:45. Okay. So the graph above it, it's titled Melody's Activity. Can you tell the jury what they're looking at?
This is a graph showing activity markers for the time span of 6 o'clock p.m. to 11:48 p.m. on July 3rd. The two different colors show different types of measurement of activity that are found in the cell phone extraction of Melody Farris.
And it ended at 11:48. So while this phone call was being made, is that just when the measurement ended?
Correct.
Okay. All right. So now we're in the early morning of July 4th at 12:14 a.m. What is this?
This is a message from a short message service from the number 611-612 code. I'm sorry, it's a message to Melody from 2166 message service for Straight Talk Wireless.
And that is that 611-612 the content of that message?
Correct.
Okay. I know there's a couple of numbers, so I wanted to delineate. So the 21663 is essentially the number that the phone is communicating with. And then the 611-612 is the content of that message.
Correct.
Okay. And then what's the next message down there in the middle?
So again, at 12:14, it's another message, and this is from the short message service for Straight Talk Wireless to Melody, in which it states, for more info about Straight Talk Wireless, Straight Talk services or products, please visit http://straighttalk.com or call 1-877-430-2355.
Which phone were these messages on?
Any text message would be on the personal family phone. So these are on the personal phone.
Okay. And then the phone call at 12:15 is on which phone?
Also the personal family phone, 9029.
Okay. And this phone call with Rusty is about an hour and 14 minutes, which would end, not great at math, almost at 1 a.m. Is that fair to say?
Correct.
So this is while she's on the other phone with Rusty.
Correct.
And we're still on the early morning of July 4th. This is a second call to Straight Talk at 12:20. Here's the other side. 12:15,
Correct.
and then a second call about 4 minutes.
Yes.
Okay. And then the next two, well, the next message at 12:24 from Straight Talk, confirmation. Thank you for adding airtime.
Correct.
What are we looking at 12:24 a.m.?
This is a email that is found in the phone extraction of Gary Farris's telephone. It is a notification from his bank, which he was receiving alerts for from Wells Fargo, in which it's an alert stating there was a transaction to Straight Talk airtime in the amount of $36.28.
And that went to Gary's email address and you found this alert in his cell phone extraction.
Correct.
Okay. In the cell phone extraction for his email account, when you were looking for this financial alert, did any other financial alerts involving Straight Talk appear?
They did not.
This was the only Straight Talk alert that you found in Gary's email.
Correct.
And what, can you read that card number for me into the record?
Card ending in 0078.
And then at 2:20 a.m., what do we have there?
This is a call from Melody to Rusty, lasting duration 35 minutes, 47 seconds.
So that ends about 2:55 a.m.
Correct.
Okay. On the morning of July 4th.
Yes.
All right, what are we looking at 5:52 a.m.?
This is a location of Gary Farris's handset based upon the Google location records. This is the date of July 4th, 2018, and the time is 5:52 a.m. And the radius shown here, the certainty that Google provides of this location is 11 meters.
So that covers a portion of outside and then a portion of the house, that bottom portion of the house. And we have kind of a clearer photo. Looks like it kind of covers this back area right there.
Correct.
$6:12, what do we have there?
This is a call, 6:12 a.m., Scott Farris to Melody Farris, lasting 9 seconds in duration.
And the morning of at 6:21, morning of July 4th, what is this?
Again, this is an alert notification from Wells Fargo to Gary's email. And this is an alert stating the card ending in 0078 was used at a ATM location in Freeholm for the amount of $80.
And at 6:24, what are we looking at there?
Again, this is a handset precision location of Gary Farris's device. This is at 6:24 a.m. and the certainty of this location is 31 meters.
And so a large portion of that is the woods, and then it barely touches the side of the house. Is that fair to say?
Correct.
And at 6:29, what do we have right there?
This is a call from Melody Farris to Rusty for the duration of 20 seconds at 6:29 on July 4th.
On the 1987 phone.
Correct.
And so that was at 6:29 a.m., 20 seconds, and then at 6:30, what do we have there?
We have another call, Melody to Rusty, and this is 59 minutes and 44 seconds in duration.
And at 6:32, we moved to some of Scott's conversations. What do we have there?
This is a text message thread located in Scott's phone extraction. This is Scott to Ted at 6:32 a.m. saying y'all up.
And then Scott says what? Well, Ted says what?
Ted replies at 6:34, yes sir.
And then what does Scott say?
Scott replies at 6:34, I'm on my way.
What are we looking at 6:37 a.m.?
This again is a Google precision location of Gary Farris's device at 6:37. You see the lines coming from this area. This is showing repeat measures of this device at these different times of 6:37, 6:43, and 7:21, all in the same 11-meter certainty.
Were there more, I don't know what you call them. What do you call like this point?
This is the circle within the circle is the exact latitude and longitude provided in the records for the Google location.
So you listed 3. Were there more than 3 for that location?
In this time frame, there were not.
Okay, so the time frame between 6:37 and 7:20, these are the 7:21. These are the only 3.
Correct.
Okay. And then beyond 7:21, were there more?
Yes.
Okay. All right, we kind of go back to Scott, and at 6:40, tell the jury what they're looking at here on this slide.
This is showing Scott's cell site location for his device at 6:40 a.m. and at 6:46 a.m. And the tower here, as you can see, it's showing you the pi, the sector of the tower, the face of the tower that this call was transmitted from. This call text message data point of the device, some transmission, in which these two transmissions occur at 6:40 a.m. and 6:46 a.m. And on the right-hand side is drive time to the physical location of that cell tower. And I mapped it back to this exact day and time. And just to show, typically, drive time to that tower location is typically, we'll say 8 to 14 minutes away from that location of the residence.
So at the latest, Scott left the house at 6:32. Is that the latest, if we're talking shortest amount of time to get to that location?
Based upon that calculation.
The 8 to 12 minutes, okay. And then he hits at 6:40. 6 minutes later, he's in a different sector in a different tower further away in Sawney Mountain.
Correct.
Okay, at 7:58 through 9:05, what are we looking at there?
This is showing, again, the Google location, precision location of Gary's handset during these times. And they do overlap based upon the certainty of the meters provided. So at 7:58, we have an 11-meter precision location. At the next data point is at 8:21, which is much larger at 21 meters. And then the next data point is at 9:05 a.m., which is 10 meters.
So for this time frame, were there more data points than the 3 that you're showing?
These are the only ones during this time frame.
Okay. And on the right side, what are we showing the jury there?
This is phone activity, phone calls. At 8:17 a.m., Melody calls Rusty, and they speak for 2 minutes, 17 seconds. And again at 9:03 a.m., Melody to Rusty for 10 minutes and 10 seconds.
Okay, so on the left side, you have 9:05 to 11:16. Is that the only data point for that time frame for Gary's handset?
Again, yes, these are repeat data points with the same certainty during that time frame.
And on the right side, what are you showing there?
This is phone activity. This is at 9:13 a.m. Amanda to Melody on the personal family phone, calling. They speak for 3 minutes and 54 seconds. At 9:17, Melody calls Rusty on the 1987 phone for 3 minutes and 34 seconds. Again, at 10:18 a.m. on the 1987 phone, Melody calls Rusty for 3 minutes and 49 seconds. And again, at 10:39, Melody calls Rusty for 6 minutes and 21 seconds.
So the call with...
That's correct.
Okay, and we're still on the morning of July 4th at 11:28. What is this?
This is a call from Melody to Rusty at 11:28 a.m. for 19 minutes and 7 seconds.
And Amanda texts Melody and says what at 11:28 a.m.?
We are headed towards the house to gather our things, and we're going to head to the islands.
What does Melody say back?
Okay, gotta get a quick shower, been working.
Amanda to Melody in the bottom.
Okay, Addison keeps texting Cameron.
Melody to Amanda at 11:39 a.m. And then she texts her one more time.
Call you in a few.
Okay. So the bottom half of this screen, you're showing what?
This is at 11:43 a.m. Gary's handset precision location moved from the previous that you saw to this location.
So this 9:05 location, it moved, that's at 9:05, and then this is a few hours later it moved to that location.
From 9:05 to 11:16 a.m.
Oh. Was that the range of the other
Right.
one?
Right
Okay,
here.
this location.
From
I see.
9:05 to 11:16, the device continuously hits in this location with the same amount of certainty that you see depicted there.
And then,
And then from 11:43 to 6:24 p.m. on July 4th, this is the repeat location with the same amount of certainty.
why do you have an asterisk after 6:24 p.m.?
This is the last data point of location from Google for Gary's device at 6:24 p.m.
Ever.
Correct.
So does that mean, what are the possibilities of why that would end?
The phone battery could have died. The handset cannot reach any signals at this point or any transmissions.
Like powered off or died, or some reason it's just not getting any signals?
Correct.
So like would airplane mode do that?
No transmission to the device of
Okay.
any sort of location services at this point.
Okay. 12:05 on July 4th. What do we start with there?
This is a call from Scott to Melody for 2 minutes and 31 seconds.
And then Amanda sends, it looks like Amanda sends Melody her location.
Correct.
And then what is the message that goes along with that location?
At 12:10, Amanda says to Melody, parked by the pier where we always walk in, tap on my location and your phone GPS will take you there.
And at 12:11, what does Melody say?
Alrighty, I'll try it. I'm not tech savvy.
12:12, Amanda back.
Haha, it will open when you press it, then hit go.
And then she sends her another message.
So it's 15 to get on the island, 10 to get to beach access because it's the holiday.
Okay, and then Melody says to Amanda at 12:20.
Okay.
All right. And then at 12:28,
Melody calls Rusty for a duration of 21 minutes, 13 seconds.
12:29, conversation continues with Amanda.
Amanda tells Melody, bring a chair if you have one. We're running back to the house to get ours.
And then you can keep reading.
Okay. A lot more people, but we got a nice spot with the pop-up tent.
Okay, and then Melody says what?
Don't think I have one.
12:31.
You have that lounger. It's heavy though. We will have 3. Cameron can sit on the sand. Ha.
And that's Amanda to Melody.
Correct.
What do we have at 12:45 p.m.?
Addie sent a text message to Melody at 12:45 p.m. Is a sleepover at your house tonight still on?
Melody says it looks like accidentally to Amanda.
Melody says to Amanda at 12:46, yes, sweetie, it's fine.
And then, sorry, meant for Addison, and then actually replies to Addison.
Yes.
Okay, yes, sweetie, it is 12:46. Addison, what does she say back to Melody?
Okay, great.
12:47.
This is an indication in Melody's device that the Maps application is initiated.
And Amanda texts Melody at 1:01.
They are asking if they can go to your house tonight. Told Chris that was your decision.
What does Melody say back?
Told Addison yes.
Okay, and then Melody to Amanda at 1:16.
Stopped at Target to get chair.
Okay. And what are we looking at here for 1:16 p.m.?
This is the location, the cell site location of the 1987 telephone at 1:16 p.m. in which the tower is located over the Beaufort Highway area.
Up towards the lake
Correct.
and away from the property.
Correct.
Okay. So this is for the 4th. It looks like from 7:24 a.m. to 2:44 p.m. What are we looking at here?
Again, these are activity measurements during this time frame in which, the graph has peaks and valleys showing indications of activity.
Okay. So there's a couple of peaks around 9:23 a.m. and then 10 well, I guess 10:15-ish a.m. Okay, what are we looking at on this slide? This looks like Scott's activity from 9 p.m. on the 3rd to July 4th at 7 a.m.
Yes, these are activity measurements for Scott's device found in his cell phone extraction for the time frame of July 3rd, 9 p.m. to July 4th at 7 a.m.
So we know that the call to Melody was at 11:34. That was in the area of the home.
Correct.
And then doesn't look like we really see activity again until about 5:52 a.m.
Correct.
And then what are we looking at here?
This is Scott Farris's activity measurements from July 4th to July 5th morning, 8 p.m. on July 4th to 10 a.m. on July 5th.
Okay. So about between 11:24 and it looks like 12 a.m., no activity until the morning around 8:22 a.m.
Correct.
What are we looking at here?
This is just a record from Gary Farris's email records within his cell phone extraction, in which emails were indicated as read or unread. This shows the last status of read in the device was at 2:05 p.m. on July 3rd, 2018.
And we know that his phone location had him going out to dinner between, I would say, around the hours of like 8 and 9 p.m. So he doesn't read any of those either, right? So they remain unread up till about 9 p.m. But then the rest are also unread, and
Correct.
they go all the way to July 4th at 11:09 a.m.
Correct. These are all in the status of unread in the device.
Okay, Ms. Harris, what are we looking at on this slide?
So I conducted an analysis of the communication between Melody and Rusty, and in particular, I focused my efforts on the time span of July 2nd to July 5th, based upon the information in the investigation, and I went to a further time span in the telephone relationship to see if there was anything that was odd or uncommon within this time frame per the investigation and the totality of their communication. So I noticed these hours of 11 p.m. to about almost 3 a.m. In the totality of their communication were odd, or outliers, if you will. So I pulled all calls between Melody and Rusty for 6 months, and I created this graph that places the frequency of the calls by time of day. So as you see here, in the hour of 9 a.m., there's 295 calls in that 6-month period.
So the small number on each dot is the number of calls that appear around that time.
In the totality of that 6-month
In the
time
totality of the 6 months, okay.
That's correct.
So I want to go down here to this box, and I think that says 13.
Correct.
And what time frame is that?
That is military time for 11 o'clock p.m.
So 2300.
Correct.
Okay. And then you have a red box around 0, which is midnight.
Correct.
Okay. And then that number is 3.
Correct.
And then 1 right before 1 a.m. and 1 right before 2 a.m.
Right
Is
at
that
2 a.m. Yes, right. at
okay?
And the time at the bottom here for the hour of the day is in Eastern time. That Rusty and Melody were in 2 different time zones. So this is from the analysis of Melody's records in Eastern time zone.
So our time zone.
Correct.
So the total number of the calls in the red is what?
Let's see, 18.
Okay. Are these all 18 of those calls?
This is each of those 18
Contacts.
During that time span of 11 p.m. to 3 a.m.
So you have all of those 18 that were in the red. You pulled them together and just listed them right here.
In the red boxes, that's correct.
Yeah. Okay.
I wanted to see if there was anything common on these days of why this contact is different at these times of nights.
So the bottom 3, what dates were those?
Those are 2 on July 3rd, 1 on July 4th, 2018.
What are the times for the July 3rd calls?
23:28 or 11:28 p.m., 23:45 or 11:45 p.m., and 2:20 a.m. on July 4th.
So the call at 11:28 p.m. was about 5 minutes, 4 minutes and 58 seconds.
Correct.
So that's the duration of the call. And then the next call was 1 hour and 14 minutes.
Yes.
And then the last one on July 4th was 35 minutes.
Correct.
What are we looking at here?
So this is sort of a breakdown of the analysis of what you just saw in that 6-month time span of January 2018.
All right, so just want to jump in here. I was playing the analysis of Rusty's calls. I wanted to get that in there to demonstrate. Yes, there are some irregularities, obviously, and some concerns about the call patterns that happened on that day. But what we were really playing this for is, as you saw here, and I guess I need to play it through just to prove that there's not a mention of it at all, and we will, but I wanted to point out why we're listening to this, whether or not there was any discussion or evidence put forth in this witness, and maybe it exists, about the location of Scott or his phone on the afternoon of the 4th, and there was none. Now, you saw, if you should have seen and you were looking, Scott clearly has a lot of activity all the way up until about 8, 9 o'clock, which would be well consistent with what that anthropologist said would be happening with that fire. That fire would have burned strong. Somebody would have been over there tending it. He perhaps was tending to some of the animals, and then eventually it would begin, kind of feeding off of itself for a few hours, burning up its fatty tissue and things of that nature, continuing to burn strong, and then eventually simmering out to where it was at about 1 o'clock the day of the 4th, when the investigators were there taking temperatures and investigating. So again, there is one person in this story who does not have his whereabouts accounted for at the very time that this fire is going to start. And again, I understand the reaction here by many people out here, because I'm watching the reaction in the comments and people are getting very upset. But I'm just presenting what was presented in the trial. It's funny. I mean, some people's reactions to say this is a conspiracy theory. It's not a conspiracy theory at all. It's what the evidence says. And I'm sorry that you don't like the evidence, what the evidence is. This is exactly why when juries are instructed, they're instructed, do not deliberate, do not consider, do not think about, do not come to a conclusion. When you do, you will get so wrapped around it, you will develop biases. And that's exactly what happens. And that's what's happened in this case with many, many people. They can't get past the affairs. And again, maybe she was trying to poison them. This was a toxic relationship that was going on probably far longer than it should have. And it comes up to this point. But there were a lot of people around this scenario besides her that also had problems. Remember what day the Walmart receipt got introduced into evidence? I believe that would have been through possibly one of the investigators. I'm not certain. But I believe it's discussed, or maybe it's a closing argument. I believe it may have been the lead investigator when that got put in, because it was found in the search of receipt of the house and stuff. Hold on one second. All right, so that was my son bringing his dancing cactus into the room that he got here, and he's playing with it. Wonderful. All right, hold on one second. Anyways, so the Walmart receipts, I believe, came in. I could be wrong on that. I'd have to go back and look, but I'm not 100% certain. But the bottom line is, look, when you go back and look at this, nobody can answer how she got him on the burn pile. And if the answer is she shot him, like I was saying, like everyone's been saying, then that's a big problem, because that means he couldn't have reached that burn pile to be shot, put on it, and burn him until after 1:09 p.m. on the 4th, and she wasn't there. Truth for us, the Walmart receipt found in her car. Okay. Yeah, remember, the Walmart receipt was for items that were bought on the 5th. She went and bought things on the 5th with that credit card, which is why it leads me to believe that at some level, again, it doesn't exonerate her from being involved in this. I mean, there is, but the point is, there are multiple theories that extend out, and in reality, if you're sitting on a jury with this type of a situation, with this evidence sitting in front of you, and with this type of contradictions, questions, and concerns, those are what you call reasonable doubts. And we're talking about reasonable doubts that don't just go to say you have reasonable doubts in a quitter of 1, 2, 3. We're talking about all of them, because there is a potential explanation that says she didn't know anything. And then there's, well, she could have. And then there's, well, how did she get this? How did she get that? So, it's I don't know. It's a very difficult situation. I realized that song was set. Basically, when I flipped back into this screen, the song was set and it started playing, I guess. And I don't hear the song if it's playing, if I'm on where I'm on talk mode. So appreciate you guys letting me know that, so I'm not talking over the music. Probably can't hear it. Anyways, so what I was saying at the end of this is jury is not coming back to deliberate until Monday, so we will begin again on Monday. We may do another session, and don't worry, I'll play the music again, I promise, before I leave. And we've got a few more minutes left of the podcast there, or of casting time. So I can play some of the music there for you while we're waiting, or we're not really waiting. I guess we're waiting for the entire time. But anyways, point is, we will be back on Monday for true deliberations, because it's I believe the jury left at 4:00. That's why Law and Crime turned it off. So they're going for it today. No verdict. I believe we'll definitely have a verdict or some sort of resolution by next week, I would like to think. When next week, I have no idea. But I'd love to hear more of you guys to consider this information that we put. And consider it. I mean, because I think that is how do you explain it? How do you explain the forensic evidence that suggests that this fire couldn't have been started later than 1:09 p.m. on the 4th? Oh, I think it will be too, Marmalade. Maybe they're running into this some of this stuff, and it'll get them at least maybe playing the trial back. I got a feeling they probably want to go back and play this trial back. So I think that's going to be something that's going to come in. But so yeah, we're finding out what's going on here. But hopefully by the end of next week. But anyways, with that said, let's check our poll, and then that'll be the final thing that we're going to do. Give me a moment. I'll get the final results of the poll, and we'll see where everyone's at. I know it's actually moved down So we are at 58% guilty all charges, 16% not guilty all charges, not guilty on counts 1, 2, 3, but guilty of 3 and 4 are 11%. And hung jury, we are doing it again, 15%. So all told, 42% of you out there out of 656 votes believe this thing is in some form of a not guilty or a non-verdict. So that is actually pretty good for Melody Farris, because when you see a room like that of 600 and some people, and you've only got 52% are convinced, it's going to be crazy. Yes, but going out has outside influences. Well, look, this is why the judge said it's very dangerous to do that. It's very, very dangerous. They're going to be, listen, if you don't think they're not going to be researching this or tempted to go pop on YouTube and see what's going on or watch something back, listen, I guarantee you that's a house divided in there, and they're going to be out doing their own little research, and there's nothing anybody can do. But I will be very surprised if we don't have, unless the verdict happens within a couple of hours on Monday morning, that we don't have a situation where somebody somewhere says a juror was doing something they shouldn't have been doing. All right, so poll has been ended. So Lauren, none of your business, says, I'm hoping for a miracle. Guilty on all charges. Well, here's the thing. The longer the jury deliberates, the less likely that is, but we'll see if it is. I absolutely think the MJ is ripe for appeal, although I think I think this judge, they didn't make a lot. You didn't hear the jury's making a big case for appeal. Now there was a motion for mistrial then, so that will be the potential there. Let's see here. What do we got here? You said the numbers went up. Well, there must have been some people voting. We had 663, so it looks like a few extra people jumped in and voted at the end to try to drive that figure up. But listen, I think it's going to be. I think it could be not guilty of all charges. I think it's likely that could happen. And then I also think it's possible that we still get the split verdict, but I don't know. We'll find out. And then of course it could be a hung jury. We could actually have a mixed verdict where we could have hung on some and verdicts on others. So per Court TV, Vinny, Monday is a fast verdict. Okay. Well, we'll see if that's the case. That's why I said if it may be that these people, listen, it could very well be that they have a verdict and that everyone said, you know what, let's go home and let's think about this and let's make sure we're all right on it and think it over and make sure that nobody has any other concerns or doubts. But we'll see. I don't know. It's going to be very, very interesting. So with that said, guys, we're going to call this stream a wrap here. I'm going to play a little bit of music here, and then we'll be on our way out. So until we talk again, guys, let justice prevail, and I will be talking to you soon. Be on the lookout. I've got a big announcement news coming up on another case. It's going to be dropping. I'm going to give a couple of hours notice for people to be aware, but it's huge. Something huge has happened, but that's coming up, totally unrelated to the Farris case. Talk to you soon.